In the build-up to the impending elections in Nigeria, there had been a clamor for Nigerians in the diaspora to be provided an avenue to vote and participate in the political process. That clamor was, however, met with stiff resistance by some elements in the National Assembly, specifically in the House of Representatives, where a bill to that effect was instantly muzzled. But as the next election looms, that issue is again sticking out like a sore thumb and an indictment on the entire process. We're now being joined by Adetunji Omotola, the founder of the Guild of Nigerian Professionals in South Africa, to look at the coming elections and the Nigerians in diaspora. It's good to have you with us, Tunji. First of all, before we start on the main issue, your guild, tell us how it works to protect the interest of Nigerians in South Africa.
Okay. Thank you for asking me that question. So basically, I set up the Guild of Nigerian Professionals in 2013. So it's actually 10 years in August this year. It will be 10 years. And the reason why we set it up was we found that there was no organization in South Africa that was out to protect Nigerian professionals. And so we partnered at the time with the Chamber of Commerce, and our criteria for joining the Guild was not too rigorous. You should have been in South Africa for at least 3 years. You should have a driver's license. You also should, not have a criminal record. And you must love Nigeria and South Africa almost equally. And you should have been to 3 provinces in South Africa. So that's what we do. So basically, we're protecting Nigerian professionals. We try and bat for them. It's very tough when you're doing this career thing on your own. So that's what we do.
All right, let's get straight into. So let's get into it now, because we know that the court has actually fixed a date, the 15th of February, to actually hear this particular case about diaspora voting. Are you aware of that?
Well, look, we're aware of a number of things. But the challenge is that there are many issues around this diaspora voting. And I think the biggest one that the government talks about, or INEC talks about, is that it's a logistical nightmare to be able to do so, because Nigerians are scattered all over the world.
My question was this. There is a case coming up on the 15th where it will be heard about, where the court will actually hear and also entertain suits that have been brought to it in terms of the eligibility of Nigerians in the diaspora to actually vote. So that was what I was inquiring.
That's good news.
So that's what I'm inquiring about. So there might be probably a silver lining in the dark cloud. What are you expecting to come up from that? Because you're already signaling that. You're already signaling defeat before the case is even actually concluded.
No, maybe because it's coming at the 11th hour. Because I mean, the deadline for registration and for collection of PVCs is already over. I think that was on the 5th of February.
Yeah.
So it's like in Yoruba they say, I've forgotten how to say it, but you actually do medicine after death. So how does that help? If the courts were to say, okay, you can vote, that wouldn't happen this time around. So whilst we're happy that there's a court case, the fact that there's a court case doesn't mean that it's going to happen. But it's good to know that there's some kind of progress being made in that area. But the critical issue for us is that the National Assembly, where the heavyweights are, those guys are not really keen on diaspora voting. And also INEC, who says that they're ready, they don't have the capacity to be able to conduct diaspora voting. That's what they tell everyone. So that's my position, that things are still very much in the dark.
Okay, if I may come in, when it comes to the issue of diaspora voting, I'm thinking from an individual perspective, maybe the countries where Nigerians reside, perhaps they could come together and form groups, to pressure the National Assembly, as you mentioned, to institute changes, more proactive changes that would allow Nigerians to vote. But are we seeing that kind of reactions
Yes,
from...
I think the challenge we have in diaspora is that those who are located in the UK tend to bat for themselves in the UK. Those who are in South Africa tend to bat for themselves in South Africa. So there's no cross-fertilization of ideas. But if that were to happen, that would be a good thing. But for now, we're living in blocks, and it makes it very difficult to lobby. But I do know that we've been asked to lobby specific representatives directly. Maybe that should be another way to do it, to go to your MP or your member of parliament to lobby directly. But for now, it's a haphazard arrangement. You get people will go to court and take INEC to court or say, but in the end, we're not really lobbying as a collective.
All right, not lobbying as a collective, of course, we know Nigerians are actually scattered across the face of the earth, as they always say, that's 1 in every 4 blacks are Nigerians. Now, but looking at that, as it stands right now, we do have the numbers, especially in the diaspora. And a lot of people have commended the diaspora community for the remittances they actually do make. Aside voting, or up until when that law is actually, although it's actually passed into law and Nigerians in the diaspora can actually vote, what do you think is the next best thing to do to not directly influence the election, but to ensure that Nigerian voices in the diaspora is being heard and they also have a say in who becomes their leader?
Okay, so Aaron, basically, let me use myself as an example.
Yes.
So I came here last year to register in Oshodi Solo local government. I stood on the queue for about 4 hours, sweating like a chicken. And then I went back. They told me to come back in August. Of course, it wasn't practical to come back in August, but I came back now. And I went there again to collect my PVC. And after 3 hours of standing outside in the sun, they said my PVC was not found. So that's a diaspora that's actually made an effort to come and go through the process like those who are residents in Nigeria, and that has failed. And I'm sure there are others who would probably have the same case as me, because the not found was quite significant on the specific day, the 5th of February being a Sunday. Now, in terms of the other issue that you mentioned, how can we influence? Of course, every person who is in diaspora has relatives in Nigeria, and some are even breadwinners for their family. So I suspect what people are already doing is to be indicating who they're supporting. And, you know, in fact, some people have found themselves on the Presidential Campaign Council. I know that's true for a PDP chieftain in South Africa. And also I know that's true for a Labour Party member. In fact, the Labour Party member used to be PDP. So what's happening now, there's a lot of musical chairs. So some people say, I'm PDP, but I want to support Tinubu because I believe Tinubu has done a good job. Some people say, no, we're in PDP and we're going to stay in PDP because we believe PDP will bring good things that they had before in terms of the Obasanjo-Atiku administration all the way to Jonathan Goodluck with Akinwumi Adesina. And some people just say they don't want to hear about the two main parties. They want a breath of fresh air. They're going to be obedient. So diaspora is involved. The only challenge is that we're still marginalized because we're not on ground. In fact, they say we're not on ground. So I said people should take a picture. If you're in London, just take a picture and see, let's see whether you're not standing on the ground, because I don't know what you're not on the ground means. If you're a Nigerian, you should be able to vote. South Africans can vote, Rwandans can vote, Kenyans can vote.
Kenyans can vote.
So it's quite extraordinary that Nigeria, which is supposed to be driving the change agenda in terms of democracy in Africa, we're still far behind.
All right, on current events and from the perspective of diasporans, Nigerians, the Naira redesign and the backlash on implementation within an election season, of course, the ever-lasting fuel problems as we have it every now and then. So how political, what are Nigerians saying where you are regarding all of this, like you mentioned, at the 11th hour?
Well, again, I'm a victim of this. In fact, I got scammed while I tried to change money because I don't do transfers and all of that. So I don't have the capacity to be able to do transfers, even though I have a local account. But I think people outside will be frustrated. I haven't asked them what they think, but they'll be frustrated in the sense that there are a lot of Nigerians who are abroad, who have businesses in Nigeria. So the same impact that is having on those who are within, it will have probably even more devastating impact, because there are people who, whilst they're remote, they want things to work. You know, I call it the Nigeria files. People who love Nigeria so much that everything they do outside of where they live, they put it in Nigeria. So you can imagine if 90% of your income comes from Nigeria, there are people like that. And this whole no cash, no fuel, you know, it's so painful. And also because it's so close to the election, it gives, I wrote this morning that these elections, for me, things like PVCs not found, no fuel, no cash, and then the security. Those for me are the four issues that are really going to make this election more difficult to appreciate, because it's tough enough, then you put in more layers of pain on it, and the people are fed up and frustrated. So it's really a case of almost like a meltdown situation. Yeah, everybody's feeling the pinch.
All right, feeling the pinch. Since we've been speaking about elections and election matters, let me sample your opinion and your thoughts concerning the preparedness of the Independent National Electoral Commission as we approach the general elections, less than 2 weeks away right now. Do you think INEC are ready for the elections, and are they up to the task?
Well, if you listen to the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, he sounds very optimistic and upbeat. And I think that's the nature of the role of the INEC chairman. If he comes and says they're not ready, then there'll be bedlam. But if you look at it from a security perspective first, what's going on in the southeast, the banditry in the northwest, and even the problems in the northeast, you don't need to be a soothsayer to know that there's going to be serious problems for INEC to be able to conduct the elections in the way and manner that they choose, that they want to conduct the elections. Over and above that, I mean, with this crisis of no fuel and so on, I mean, how do they move around the country? Then also there's no cash. That's also, even though they said there won't be a problem. But then there's the fact that many of us have been disenfranchised even before the day of the election, not found. So for me, although I appreciate that so many people have gotten their PVCs, well over 90 million, on my part, I am going to be taking INEC to court, because the contract we had was that I should go and get my PVC, and when I got there, it was not found. And nobody has sent me an SMS. They said they'll send us an SMS. We've not received any SMS. They've not asked us to provide an alternative number, because the SIM card that I had is even lost. So from that perspective, I don't think that I could say that INEC is fully prepared. But of course, judging by what they did the last elections, I think that they will give it a bash. They'll give it their best shot, but I'm not going to say 100% preparation. There's no evidence of that.
Indeed, interesting perspective there. Adetunji Omotola, founder, Guild of Nigerian Professionals, South Africa. It's good to have you with us on your stake.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.